Screamboat is the latest slasher horror film that transforms the classic Mickey Mouse into a terrifying killer. When a mutant mouse named Steamboat Willy escapes from a hidden chamber below deck, the Staten Island ferry becomes the site of a bloody massacre. Filled with dark comedy, absurd mayhem, and unexpected terror, this film delivers nostalgia in a truly terrifying way. Welcome to a world where cartoons aren't just funny anymore, they're deadly.
Stories about a monster that lurked in the underbelly of the ferry. Steamboat Willy.
That's gonna make one fucked up cartoon.
The film opens in New York City at night. Two ship workers, Neil and Dominique, are repairing an old ferry called the Mortimer. As Neil opens a metal panel to sell for scrap, an explosion occurs and throws them off. In the chaos, a mysterious creature appears and kills Neil. Dominique sees that it is a creepy humanoid mutant rat. She runs to the engine room, but the creature is waiting for her. Trying to escape again, Dominique slips on Neil's severed ear and falls into the darkness, just as the creature leaps at her. Elsewhere, a young girl named Selena runs in terror toward a ferry on Staten Island. She is stopped by a ferryman named Pete, who asks her how she is. Selena explains that she just ran away from a birthday party where she was working as a waitress. The partygoers dragged her into the street and wouldn't let her go. She just wanted to go home. Pete tells Selena to hide below deck and says he'll take care of them. Soon after, the party group led by Cindy, the birthday girl, arrives and asks where Selena is. Pete says she's already upstairs, and they rush up to the upper deck to look for her. Captain Bill, the ship's captain, actually received a warning from another officer named Mike. Mike advised him not to sail due to heavy fog, but Captain Bill, clearly exhausted and fed up, insisted on continuing the trip. Left with no choice, Mike reluctantly agreed. Inside the ferry, a nurse named Amber notices a man named Barry sleeping. His face looks strange and unsettling. When she tries to wake him, Barry suddenly opens his eyes and says, "This ship is cursed." Amber is confused by his words but says nothing. She simply hands him an energy drink and walks away.
Who's going to pay for it?
Selena is still hiding below deck when Pete comes to check on her. They start talking. Pete shares that he wants to do something meaningful with his life. Selena then opens up, saying she often writes about her dreams in her notebook, but she's never actually finished any of them. Meanwhile, a young man wearing a green cloak is walking around the ferry. Suddenly, he hears a whistle, but sees no one around. When he returns to where he was, he notices his mask has fallen. As he bends down to pick it up, a giant rat-like creature appears out of nowhere and attacks him. Selena goes to the restroom where she runs into Amber, the nurse. Amber is holding Selena's notebook. She found it on the floor. Selena is relieved and thanks her. But after Amber leaves, Selena stares at the notebook for a moment, then throws it into the trash. She's exhausted with her life in New York and feels hopeless. Unaware, in the next stall, the giant rat creature is devouring its latest victim. As the ferry moves through thick fog, a police officer hears a strange giggle, like Mickey Mouse coming from the stairs. When he checks it out, a giant rat creature attacks him with a hammer, injuring him badly. Selena hears his screams and runs to the back of the ship. There, she sees the creature, wearing cartoonish suspenders, throwing the officer into the ship's propeller, causing a gruesome scene. Strangely, the rat doesn't harm Selena. Instead, it stares at her with admiration, like love at first sight, and offers the officer's body as a gift. Horrified, Selena runs away. Selena ran to Amber and Pete, informing them that there was a giant rat killing people. They found it hard to believe, but another officer named Diaz said that Amber should watch over Selena while he investigated in the ship's control room. Captain Bill realized the fog had become too thick. He tried to use the radio to call for help, but suddenly he saw a wall covered with strange photos from the past. Before he could react, a rat attacked him from behind. The rat wrapped a steel cable around the captain's neck and pulled until his head was torn off. Now the rat had taken control of the ship's wheel, steering while whistling a strange tune from an old cartoon. But this was no funny cartoon. It was a nightmare.
Ever see anything like that?
Meanwhile, Tommy, the vice captain, entered and found the captain's head had been severed. He was shocked, but quickly took action. He appointed Pete as his assistant and instructed him to keep the passengers calm and not to tell anyone that the captain was dead. On the upper deck, two of Cindy's friends were recording a TikTok video. Suddenly, the rat appeared, driving a forklift, and rammed into them. The metal forks pierced through their bodies. Amber witnessed everything and now believed Selena had been telling the truth. Pete and Amber tried to lead all the passengers below deck, but the door was locked. Panic began to spread. One of the crew members accidentally mentioned that the captain was dead. The passengers were terrified, thinking it was a terrorist attack or a rogue police operation. Diaz tried to calm them down, saying they would survive together. But before he could finish speaking, the rat appeared and stabbed him in the neck with a broom. The rat then sprayed a large amount of water onto the floor using a hose and threw the hose into an electrical panel. The electricity surged through the water, electrocuting many people. Screams echoed everywhere. Only a few survived, including Amber, Pete, and Selena. They ran to another part of the ship and found Cindy unconscious on a bench. After taking a short rest, the group agreed that they needed to reach the control room and contact the mainland. Meanwhile, the rat was drinking beer, but suddenly caught the scent of a human. It turned out that Mateo, a young crew member, was still alive. He nearly got electrocuted, but his protective boots saved him. His mother wasn't as lucky. She was already unconscious. Fortunately, a passenger named Moses arrived and rescued Mateo before the rat could find him. Elsewhere, a young girl named Jamie was still unaware of the horrifying events taking place. She invited a police officer to check out a strange light. The officer was suspicious and brought his weapon. But everything seemed fine. In truth, Jamie just wanted to create a romantic moment, unaware that a giant rat was hiding in the closet. The rat attacked, striking the officer in a very sensitive spot, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Jaime tried to run, but the rat swiftly struck her neck, and she collapsed. Selena, Pete, Amber, Cindy, and the others finally regrouped. They headed to the captain's room, where Tommy was trying to fix the radio. But suddenly, Tommy heard a strange noise coming from the next room. When he went in to check, the rat appeared carrying a large TV. Before Tommy could react, the rat hurled the TV at his head. Tommy's head shattered instantly. Meanwhile, Cindy was still wandering alone on the ship. She was slightly drunk from celebrating her birthday. It was only then that she realized her phone was missing, and even when she found it, there was no signal. Still, she kept walking, unaware that a giant rat was secretly following her. Eventually, she reached the outer deck and finally got a phone signal. Suddenly, a new photo appeared on her screen, sent by one of her friends. But as she looked closer, she saw a giant rat standing in the background. Terrified, Cindy ran off to find her friends. She tripped over a mask worn by a man dressed as the Statue of Liberty. When she looked up, the rat was standing right in front of her, holding a large spear. Cindy ran and locked herself behind a door, mocking the rat for not being able to catch her. But she didn't realize how thin the door was. As she leaned back to catch her breath, the spear pierced through the door, straight into her body. Cindy died. Meanwhile, Pete and his friends managed to reach the ship's control room. There, they found Tommy dead, with an old shattered TV lying beside him. But the scariest part was the message written in blood on the ceiling. "Scream is your heart's desire." The radio was broken. They couldn't contact the mainland. Panic spread among the group. Suddenly, something grabbed Selena's leg. Everyone jumped in shock, but it turned out to be just Barry, an old man who had been hiding in a cabin. Captain Barry finally revealed the terrifying truth about the rat. Its name was Steamboat Willy. According to Barry, back in 1905, he worked at the port and heard rumors about a captain named Walt. One day, Walt brought a strange experiment onto his ship, a giant rat that looked like Mickey Mouse, but much more frightening. The rat was placed on a ferry named Mortimer, and Walt named the creature Willy. Walt grew fond of Willy and treated him like a friend. They sailed together for a while until a powerful storm struck and killed Walt. Since then, Willy had been hiding below deck, living in the shadows, waiting for the right time to rise again. Now he's free and furious, hunting anyone who dares to set foot on his ship. Barry also revealed one final chilling secret. The ship they're on now isn't just any ferry. Parts of Walt's old vessel were salvaged and used to build this one. That's why Willy's curse has returned, and now everyone on board is in grave danger. After hearing everything, Pete and his group decided to head to the engine room. There was a flare gun there that could be used to call for help. But before they left, Pete gave Selena a pair of protective boots, just in case they had to split up. Elsewhere, a crew member named Roscoe is being chased by Willy. Roscoe's face melts when Willy splashes him with hot steam. A security guard who hears Roscoe's screams immediately goes to the location and chases Willy. But unfortunately, the guard is burned by Willy. Pete went with Moses and Mateo, while Amber and Selena took another route. Along the way, Pete and Moses ran into Dominic, one of the crew members who had apparently survived the attack. Dominic warned them that the ship's piping system was damaged, and if it wasn't repaired soon, the engine could explode. Pete and Moses agreed to fix it and told Mateo to stay in a safe place. But as soon as they entered the piping room, Dominic suddenly attacked Moses with a large wrench. It turned out Dominic was working for Willy. He wore a helmet shaped like mouse ears and claimed that Willy wanted to take over the ship. According to him, Willy was searching for someone important, someone lost at sea. But who that person is and why Willy wants them remains a mystery. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the ship, Amber and Selena were quietly sneaking through a dark corridor. Suddenly, Amber stepped on a sharp nail. She nearly screamed, but Selena quickly covered her mouth to keep them from being discovered. While holding back the pain, Amber pointed to an emergency box. Inside, there was supposed to be a beacon, a device they could use to call for help. Selena rushed to the box, but as she reached it, she heard a hissing sound. The giant rat was standing right beside her. Strangely, it was holding a bouquet made of human ears. Selena screamed in horror. As the rat turned around, Amber grabbed a screwdriver and stabbed Willy in his left eye. The rat went into a frenzy and attacked, but Selena struck it with an iron bar. They nearly escaped, but when they finally opened the emergency box, it was empty. Dominic had already taken the beacon to stop them and to help carry out Willy's evil plan. Back in the engine room, Dominic began explaining his entire plan. He then raised a large wrench, ready to strike Pete. But before he could attack, Willy appeared, furious because his eye had been injured. Willy yanked the screwdriver out of his own eye, then leapt forward and sank his teeth into Dominic's neck. Seizing the moment, Pete grabbed the beacon and ran for his life. But Moses chose to stay behind, determined to end everything once and for all. He told Pete and Mateo to run, then aimed the flare gun at the fuel tank. Boom! A massive explosion erupted. The engine room went up in flames. Willy and Dominic were burned inside. Pete and Mateo managed to escape just in time. Selena and Amber, who had been hiding above, saw the explosion and the ship beginning to flood with water. The four of them worked together to find a narrow escape route. Pete lifted Mateo up and helped him climb out. But suddenly, Willy was still alive. The burned rat lunged forward and bit Pete's leg. Despite the pain, Pete pushed Mateo to safety and chose to stay behind and face Willy. Selena cried, begging Pete to escape with them. But Pete looked at her and said, "I'm the captain now. I have to survive and fight." Then Pete and Willy had their final showdown. beneath the water. Selena and Amber managed to escape, but even after Pete's sacrifice, Amber was still afraid. She was certain that Willy wasn't truly dead, and she was right. Mateo showed them a photo he had taken of Barry. In the photo stood the old Captain Walt, Willy, and another rat. That was what Willy had been searching for all along. His old friend, the one who was lost at sea during the Great Storm. Selena comes up with a desperate plan. She goes to Cindy's suitcase and finds a white polka dot dress, just like the one Minnie Mouse wears in the cartoons. She puts it on, disguising herself as Willy's long-lost friend to lure the rat out. Meanwhile, Amber and Mateo reach the ship's outer deck. They spot another vessel passing by and wave frantically. The ship sees them. Help is on the way. But just as Amber begins to feel relief, she hears a familiar hissing sound. Willy is back. Now wielding a large machete, he charges toward her. Amber grabs an iron bar to fight back, but she's knocked to the ground. Willy raises the machete, ready to finish her off. But then a loud whistle blew. Willy turned his head. He saw Selena, dressed like his long-lost friend, complete with mouse ears on her head. Though she only had one eye, Willy was stunned. He slowly approached her, mesmerized. Selena waited until he was close enough, then swung a large hammer, but Willy dodged it. Selena dropped the hammer and ran to help Amber. In the chaos, Mateo got separated, and Willy shoved him overboard into the sea. Selena gave chase but slipped and was left hanging off the edge of the ship. Willy approached her, lifting an iron bar, ready to push her into the water. But he hesitated. Selena's appearance reminded him too much of his lost friend. He couldn't do it. Instead, Willy pulled her back up and gently offered her real flowers, not ones made of ears. But the moment was ruined. Amber woke up and screamed. Willy turned his head and Selena seized the chance. She quickly stabbed a pair of scissors into his head. Willy slipped, stumbled, and fell into the sea. Selena rushed to look for Mateo. Thankfully, he was still alive, clinging to a floating trash can in the water. At last, help arrived. A few hours later, the rescue ship arrived. Mateo's father embraced him with tears of relief and thanked Selena and Amber for saving his son. Before they parted, Mateo returned a notebook to Selena. It was hers. Selena smiled. After everything she had been through, she realized one thing. She wouldn't give up on her dream. She chose to stay in New York and pursue it. Far out in the middle of the ocean, amid floating debris, something terrifying happened. Willy's body was found, and he was still alive. Even more frightening, he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was the old friend he had been searching for all along. Meanwhile, at the command center, Mike was working when the radio suddenly picked up a faint signal. It was Pete's voice. Pete was still alive, trapped deep inside the ship, calling for help. Mike sprang into action, preparing to go save him. At the end of the film, Selena, Amber, and Mateo are the only survivors of the massacre on the Mortimer Ferry. They discover that Steamboat Willy, a mutant killer rat, once had a missing lover, which Selena disguises as him to trick Willy. As Willy becomes distracted, Selena manages to stab him in the head with a pair of scissors, and he falls into the ocean. Mateo is rescued, and Selena decides to stay in New York to pursue her dreams of becoming an artist. However, the final twist reveals that Willy is still alive and has finally reunited with his old lover. This suggests that Steamboat Willy's reign of terror is not truly over and may yet continue. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss other interesting content. Also, activate the notification bell so you are always updated with the latest videos from this channel. Your support means a lot to us to continue working and presenting the best content. See you in the next video.